Hello, Nancy Jean.
Hello, Danny.
How are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. I think it's getting cooler.
Uh, come out here.
I know. You got too much, you don't get enough sun. I told you come out here for 15 minutes and you'll be so glad to get home.
Yeah. I wake up and when the sun, I think in the last 2 months, I've woken up to 2 days of sunshine. And
Mm.
I'm so excited. It's like, oh, look at the sun. It's great. And
Mm-hmm.
then just the marine layer has been just sucking us in. So it's all
Well,
good though. It's all good.
yeah, well, you live by the ocean, you get water. I live in the middle of a desert and it's hot and dry. What part of this amazes us? Do we just not take geography at all? I mean,
That's right. That's right. And so because I'm living by the ocean, I'm going to be living to 100 years old.
not necessarily, but you're
What?
actually the blues. What we you and I both found, and we're talking about the blue zones, which is
Blues.
not a incredibly new concept. The book written by Dan Buettner, within the conjunction with National Geographic, it's a concept that came out of the uh, early 2000s, later 2000, I mean, not
Mm-hmm.
as late as we are, but they there was a guy who found out, who was a statistician, those guys that look at numbers, and he particularly found places where a lot more people lived to be 100, and he particularly found five
Yeah.
that were really, and you're right, a lot of them are on the ocean. Loma Linda's not on the ocean. it's
Yeah,
it's
kind of.
kind of near.
I
Okay.
think. I think
I
now I
looked
got
at it on a
to.
map. It looked like it was near the end of uh, that valley that grows everything that's in Southern California.
Oh, maybe it is. Isn't that where Nixon um, resigned to?
Yes, he in that area. And people are going, "Why are you talking about Richard Nixon, ocean airs, sunny days and not sunny days?"
Yeah.
So you want to sum it up, or do you want me to?
Yeah, actually, I was just looking at Loma Linda, where it is, and yeah, it's just in LA. So
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, it's out near Riverside, which is kind of that's pretty hot. So yeah,
Hmm.
it's really not near the ocean. So
Okay.
um, well, what well let me throw some things out, and then you can add to it.
Okay.
I was just thinking, when we decided to do a show
Hmm.
about how a lot of these blue zones has elements to it that we are creating in this YouTube community.
Hmm.
And so it's not necessarily about living to be 100 in a lot of these places, but
Hmm.
for me it's about living to 100 and liking it and having
Right.
fun and being able to move and being
Hmm.
able to think and being able to have the quality of life that one would expect uh, a 70-year-old may
Hmm.
have. And you um, you had mentioned something about, oh, I just see, I need to move to one of those places because I just had a brain fade. I had something to say and I forgot about it. Um, but yeah, so it's all about the quality of life and how we maintain that awareness and happiness. And what they found in these blue zones are, if you want to narrow it down, they found like 9 lifestyle habits.
Right.
That, and so it's just not location, but it's the lifestyle habits that I see us incorporating more and more and more. locally sourced foods, for
Mhm.
example, all the farmers markets that are coming out,
Mhm.
being part a sense of community. That's what we are creating in YouTube land.
Mhm.
So it's all to me. It's all about um, being happy in your lifestyle,
Right. Right.
and then you're going to live long. Oh, here's what I was going to say. You had mentioned at one time that you're actually getting younger
Right.
as we go through the ascension process. We actually
Mhm.
get younger, and our bodies on a
Mhm.
cellular level rejuvenate and get younger. And that's kind of what this is talking about. And that's always fascinated me. And I think it's all about happiness.
Well, you're gonna feel better when you're really taking care of business. And I know this one for a fact because when I weighed 320 pounds, which means I weighed more than Donald Trump does, it's kind of hard to imagine, um, in theory. I want to go get in that scale in Fulton County. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Are you 6'2", 6'3"?
I'm 5'4" on a good
No,
day.
you're 6'3". Come on now.
Not even close.
Well, when you get on that scale in Fulton County, you'll see you are, never mind.
Yeah. Anyway, so what happened was after I got control of my life and I started just quietly changing my diet and losing weight and getting things more under control and pulling back on the drinking and eating out, for sure eating out, because it's hard to eat the
Mm,
way I eat keto and find places to eat. Although there are more places where you can go out, but they still aren't using the
right.
right oils and all the right stuff. But I began to do the things that are are in these communities. I had a deeper spiritual life. I developed a group of spiritual friends. I developed a group of friends other than my kids are here and they love me and that's wonderful. And I'm extremely fortunate that I have them. But I had other people outside of that were there to support me. I have not gone completely plant centered. I'm sorry. I still like to eat meat,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I got an expanded group of social networks after COVID, weirdly enough, through YouTube, through having people that I could call on that have specialties and make me think. When you get into a social network, it forces you to have to think about things and it forces you to expand your thought process. Um, and for me, that's really important because I don't have within the family of my birth, my birth brothers. They don't know if I'm alive or dead, and I don't know if they are. So I created, and that's what happened in some of these blue zone communities. There would be people that never married, never had children, but they would have other people that would come in and
Yeah.
become their families. And there's a word for it called a maoi, I think is what it's in Japanese, and it means a family of people that take care of you,
Yeah.
and you go and you take care of them, and it's both ways, and so that works. Um, the one thing I have not conquered yet, that's in all of these communities, is they all live in very hilly places, and they walk a lot. And like in Japan, they don't even have like sitting furniture like we have.
I noticed. Yeah. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
sleep, they sit on the floor and they sit hunched down. And there's a YouTuber that does health who tries to help you build your health. And he ended up in a locked up body at 30 and then worked his way out of it. And now he says, if you can't sit like this hunched down, like a lot of Asians do, that's the best and most healthy thing they do. And it keeps their core and stuff strong. And I am working on that. I've got a personal coach who, poor little man, is desperately trying to turn my sausage body into something better.
He said that you had a six pack that you guys that you're working on your
Yeah,
six.
I started the training to build a six pack, and I looked at him and I said, "Good luck." Anyway,
I can't wait to see that.
yeah, well, you won't. But even if I get one, Danny, I'm modest.
Come
So,
on now. Come
yeah.
on.
But so really what we're talking about is in each of these cultures, and there's Okinawa, Japan, Loma Linda, California, uh, Nicoya, Costa Rica, which is a peninsula on the western edge, Sardinia, the southern edge of Sardinia, and a
It,
little Greek and a Greek place called Icaria, which is between Greece and Turkey. It's an island.
right.
And so it's
They,
like
they
culturally,
came up with more since then too. I think they came
yeah.
up with because I when I was doing some research on the internet, they said they've came up with five new places maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as we go into this more,
Mm-hmm.
that people are going to there's going to be other regions, but I think it's the
Right.
community based
Yeah.
um, place. Just to interrupt you a little bit, um, there is when I decided to retire, a friend of mine said he was doing some research on where he would want to go to
Mm-hmm.
retire, and he was looking at one of these. It's kind of like a commune down in Mexico where
Mm-hmm.
they grow their own food. It was kind of expensive to get in there, to buy your little share, and so
Mm-hmm.
you get housing, and it's got healthcare. It's all set up real nice in this community, and you have to be interviewed to get in there. The only problem that I saw was that it was really expensive to get in there, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, it shouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
a requirement that you have, you
Money.
know, money to get in there. But it is taking over, and I think that we can manufacture these zones in a
We
way.
we have in a place called Albert Lee, Minnesota,
Yeah,
a town of between 2,000 and 3,000 people, and it's in the southern part of Minnesota. And an insurance agent went to the guy, this Dan Bootner, and said, I want to take this to my community. Let's see if we can work it out. So they worked out the principles that they thought would be most effective. And they had the whole town got together, had a big meeting. They split people into new social groupings for each other and got getting to know each other. And they talked them the principles of, you know, especially the spiritual and socialization part. And they went back 10 years later and people were still in these groups and supporting each other.
yeah,
And the insurance agent said he could look on his charts and see that the healthcare and other things had changed for people, and it made it a positive place to live. So it's not just, oh well, they were lucky enough to be born on the edge of the universe, and so life's really simple for them. Although
yes.
if you watch these documentaries, and it's on Prime right now, it's called The Blue Zones. Um, the
No,
guy,
I think it's on Netflix. But either
it's,
way, check both of them
yeah,
because
yeah.
one didn't have it, the other did.
Okay, maybe whatever service you've got in your area to.
Yeah,
So this guy went the guy that was in Costa Rica. Danny, you did pre-production, went around pre-production with people. They go out and they check all these people out and see if they are who they say they are.
right.
So the producer goes out to this ranch and he's watching this cowboy ride around. The guy can't be 7 years old, and he's looking at him and he's going, you know. And so he says, "Well, let me see what you do a day on the ranch." And so he follows him around. And finally, at the end, he said, "Well, where's the guy who's 103 years old?" And he said, "It's me." And you look at this guy's face; he doesn't have wrinkles,
Yeah,
you know. And he the producer said, okay. And so the guy showed him a state ID. He said, you can go check that out. So there's some place in Costa Rica where you can go find out. And he found out, yeah, that was the guy that he didn't think was 70, was
yeah,
103 years old. And so when they went and really interviewed him and talked to him, he eats what grows on his area. And they said, well, have you been able to stockpile money running this ranch? And he said, oh, no, 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 no. I don't know. I live off what I have right now. And he has family members and neighbors and things, and they all work collegially together. And it showed him going into town once a week and going to the bars and dancing with all the girls and having a great old time. And they said, are you sure you don't have some money stuck somewhere? And he goes, no. He said, I'm an ugly, poor man who does the best I can. and then laughed about it. And it was just like, he wasn't going to let any of the rest of it bother him, you know.
Right.
And he wasn't particularly ugly. I mean, he was actually pretty nice looking for a guy who's 103. But it showed him out repairing the fences and chopping wood. I Every one of these cultures that still had wood burning stoves, those folks chopping wood is apparently the one thing we gave up that we should never have, because it works your whole body and makes you really do that. And they all lived in. He wasn't in a particularly hilly place, but in Sardinia and Ikaria and in Okinawa, they are very hilly, and those people walk everywhere.
Yeah.
And well, I don't know where you'd put a car. I mean, the roads are.
Why do you need a car if you're walking everywhere?
That's right, and they live off the herbs that are in their area, and
A lot of them were growing their own food
right,
too.
right,
So
and
they weren't just going to the farmer's market, but they were actually,
no,
you
they live
getting their hands into the earth,
right.
which has always been super powerful for me.
Yeah, and in Ikaria, the only sweetener they've ever had is honey. Everything they eat is sweetened with their own honey, and it's pure raw honey. And that
Yeah.
was one of the things that the documentarian carried out of there was get pure raw honey, not the
Mhm.
pasteurized stuff.
And the interesting, because I do a lot of honey. That's why I'm so sweet. But
Hmm. We all
sorry,
know.
sorry, sorry. And the their glyphosate gets into a lot of the stuff that we put into the oceans. I mean, put into our plants. And so when the bees go get the pollen, it could have some of that glyphosate. So it's important to do local honey, and it's important to make sure that it's non-glyphosated as
Hmm.
much as you can, to know where it's sourced from.
Hmm.
Um, and it's difficult, but if you can find out where it's sourced from, where, like, out in the woods, out
Hmm.
um, our honey that I get, it I'm pretty sure it does not have glyphosate, but it may have a little bit of the nuclear power plant radiation attached to it. But we do what we can.
Oh, and the problem is, if you start cutting all that stuff off, you're never going to eat anything, and you're going to go
Yeah,
find a little skinny skeleton with a bathrobe on it in the corner.
showing off my six pack.
Okay.
No.
But anyway, that's so what I looked at when I was watching this documentary, and it's about 4 hours by the time you go through all of them, was when you talked about aging backwards, that's partly from the ascension, but also my doctor, after I'd cleared my lungs of my adult asthma that I developed after having pneumonia, she said, I want to figure out how you did that. So she got all my medical records for like 10 years. She went back to all the doctors I've been to.
Hmm.
And she told me the next time I saw her that I was physically, by all the ways I could measure it, I was aging backwards.
Yeah.
Then I'd been in my mid 70s and my mid 60s, and now I'm going back the other way. And so it's fascinating to see that. And people say, well, how do you do that? Or, oh, that's just, that's just weird you. But I think anybody can do that. And I think
Yeah.
that's part of why I'm here. It's part of why I'm part of this community.
Well, one of the things that strikes me as super unique with that doctor story is that she actually had curiosity, that she wanted to find out what was going on with you. Most of the time, the doctors, they just look at it and you go, "Oh, good, you're better. Okay, next," and move on.
Well, she got to realize her whole practice is geriatric nutritional diseases. And
Well, yeah,
she'd been doing keto for 15 years, and they quit counting at like 350 people that she'd gotten from type 2 diabetic medicated to completely off all meds,
yeah, yeah,
just by
yeah, yeah,
dietary changes.
yeah. And they don't teach dietary. Um, um, they don't
No,
teach diet
They
in
don't
many.
teach nutritional science.
Right.
She had to go back and get that extra education. And she's retired now because she said the other thing she'd seen was, as much as she felt compassion and wanting to work with her patients, too many people work themselves to death. And there just comes a time when you need to find the next passion in your life and go for that instead
Yeah.
of saying, I'm stuck
Yeah.
here.
Right. Oh, I mean, to me, that is so key. We work ourselves to death. We get too stressed out.
Mm-hmm.
We about little things, and you go back to that guy in Costa Rica who
Mm-hmm.
goes, "I'm just happy. Do you have any money saved up?" No.
Mm-hmm.
But I do my work. I go to the bar, have a beer, and hang out with some women, talk to them, get up and do it all over again. And he's happy with what he's doing. I'm sure he's got stress, but at 103, he's probably figured out how to manage it pretty well
Well,
and let things go.
there's a term for it in Japanese. It's called, I think, Ikagia. Anyway, it's Ikigai. I don't speak Japanese, but that word means living your life's purpose. And I get that all the time from people at a reading.
Yeah,
Can you see what my soul's purpose is?
right.
And what these people found is that the point of having that sense of purpose is to find something you love doing. Even if you don't do it extremely well, just do it. Have a good time doing it. Share it with other people and wake up every day with the sense that you have a reason to be here.
Yeah, yeah,
And, I think that happens. I know um, I still talk to friends I had since grade school. And one of us is having a birthday on the 15th, and I'll be talking with her on her birthday. And, we're all aging in some ways differently. I have a friend who was in a coma for 6 months after
mm,
chemical exposure. So she's 6 months younger than me, but she's not. But she's all completely back now, but she had to go live in a rammed earth house in the middle of the desert in Arizona for a while to
you know
really
what house?
rammed earth, it's like an adobe type house, but
Oh, okay.
it had no traditional construction materials. Every piece of fabric in her house, she knew where it was woven, and there were no chemicals on it. She had to get a special dispensation from Arizona to have cloth wrapped wiring in her house because all the off gassing, we don't realize how much stuff
Oh,
off
yeah,
gasses. And she's like, she wakes up in the morning, she looks fine. And then as the day wears on, because last time I saw her was in Chicago, she said, by 6:30, I have to be home and get ready to go to bed. And I watched her age 40 years just in front of me. It
yeah,
was like a bad movie, right? That's what she goes through every day because of the chemicals were still so locked in her body. But by living out on the edge of the desert and doing Japanese drumming and a bunch of other stuff, she now can live in Phoenix, which does have pollution, but it's not killing her.
right. And the other thing too that we don't really look at because it's invisible is the EMFs that are being pumped into our awareness and in our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And we get more and more of this stuff that people go, it's no, this is going to make our lives so much more easier, so much more convenient,
Mm-hmm.
i.e., 5G. And we don't really know the health um, aspects to all that radiation that's being pumped into us on the long term.
No.
And you go to, I went to a place out near Lassen Volcanic National Park, and
Mm-hmm.
they have the SETI Institute, Search for Extraterrestrial
Right.
Intelligence. And it's this huge radio telescope, all these
Mm-hmm.
satellites pointing up at the sky. And they said, before you get onto their property, like you have to turn off your cell phones. They go, if you turn on your cell phone, here in this property, we will lose a day's worth of data. And it's so it just makes you think that, wow, we are being bombarded with so much stuff. I'm surprised that she can live. Maybe she's not living around EMFs and that, because I would think that would be part of her clean living space.
I don't know. I know that when she moved into Phoenix, I was amazed, but she did.
Yeah.
And she said she'd gotten well enough of the toxins that had closed
Yeah.
her down. And she was a former commercial airline pilot
Mm.
and had, so she also flew through a lot of high levels of radiation. They have a much higher level of cancer
Yeah.
than the average citizen because of that. But if you want to talk about your EMFs just on your desk, there's some stones. There's a stuff called shungite, which is 93.9% carbon. It comes from an asteroid that hit the Earth 10 million years ago.
Yeah.
It's in an area that's sort of the Russian-Chinese border. I hear different stories on which side of the border it's on. So shungite sounds a little Chinese to me. But anyway, I've put that in grids, and I've actually gotten a bag of it that's like loose stones, little ones. You can put them in like a little pile on your desk, and they zoop it up because they actually use shungite to purify water and to remove radiation from things.
Oh,
They
wow.
filter things through. So
I need to get some shungite because I'm in a highly radioactive area, especially if we have a little nuclear accident.
Well, if that goes, Danny, your little shungite egg ain't gonna do a whole lot.
I'm gonna get a lot of it. I'm gonna build my RV out of shungite.
That'll work.
Yeah.
It's a little bit. It's not particularly heavy. Actually, it's pretty light.
Yeah. I have one sitting on my router.
Mm-hmm.
A little stone sitting on my router. So maybe that's why my wife is so goofy.
Now, well, no, I have some in my office, and last week everything in my office blew up. So,
Oh, all right. Well, let's talk about let's talk let's go through the 9 lifestyle habits and just kind of talk to them. And it's interesting. You mentioned, a couple that were like really simple. For me, it's I find the happier you are in your day, the longer you're going to want to live, and the more joy you find in whatever you do. I mean, and sometimes you have to look for the joy, because if you're digging a ditch, you're going, oh, my back hurts, but you got to find the joy in that activity. And there is some, you just can't focus on the negative of it, because that'll bring more negative to you. My hillbilly brother he has 3 elements for a successful, happy life. And they're very similar to all of this. He says, have someone to love the work you do, have a place to call home, and have 4 beers a day. That's his 3 rules to live a happy life.
Well, since I can't stand beer, I'm not on his, but I understand about the alcohol.
Yeah, but he's a hillbilly.
That's
and true. He said 3 things, and he named 4.
I was going to say, so we know which one we can ditch.
Right. Well, but anyway, and I go, well, he's pretty smart for. Well, okay, I'll stop that. But it goes along with what we're saying too, except for the 4 beers a day, and that's him just making a joke.
Well, maybe it does make him happy, but yeah, there's I have. Do you have all 9 of them, and do you want me to go through them quickly? Okay. Do you want to go through it quickly?
Sure. So it's just a recap of what we've been talking about. Regular physical activity, and it's
Mhm.
not going to the gym. It could be sitting on the floor and standing up. I thought
Mhm.
that was fascinating in that
Mhm.
first episode
Okinawa, right.
where they go, you just stand up from sitting on the floor. My hips scream when I sit on the floor too long.
Mhm.
So maybe I need to work
You
on that a little bit.
mhm.
What you were saying is having a life's purpose.
Right?
And that, to me, that could be something really little. That could be something really small, like um, being there for a friend.
Right.
That's your life's purpose.
Mhm.
Um, it doesn't need to be something huge. It could be, something small, like the Costa Rican guy. His life purpose is not to be, not to run Amazon. It's to have that little section in his life, you know, in balance.
Mhm.
That could be the life's purpose. Um, Reduce stress, moderate calorie intake.
Okay, on my list that's called eating to 80%.
Yeah, yeah,
Eating until you feel not full, but you've had enough, and then pushing it away. And that was in Sardinia, where the people they train their kids when they're young to eat to a certain
yeah,
point and then stop.
right. I had a friend of mine who was from France, and he goes, "We don't use the word full when we're eating. We use the word satisfied."
Mm-hmm.
Right. So when you're satisfied, you stop. But
Mm-hmm.
a lot of this full stuff, just eat eat everything off your plate was clean your plate was
Mm-hmm.
because of a lot of times there wasn't enough food to eat. So
Mm-hmm.
if you did get food, you should finish the food you got. And
Right.
so we've just gone overboard with it, I think.
Mm-hmm. And
And
also with the food we're eating. We're not eating food that gives us satiety, which means it fills you up and makes you feel satisfied and holds you for hours.
right.
What that was the biggest change when I made that in my diet. It was like I can remember in the olden days when the doctor would say we have to do a fasting blood sugar. And I was not terrified of what the blood sugar was going to say, although I should have been, because at that point I was clearly pre-diabetic. But I my big fear was how am I going to make it to 9:30 in your office without eating breakfast? I'm going to
Yeah.
collapse on the floor. And when I finally got geared into I do a lot of intermittent fasting, so I eat in a 6 hour window, and I don't eat for 18 hours. And, I can remember the first time I heard about fasting, and I thought, go without food for 24 hours, never going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll
Yeah. Yeah.
eat clear. I'll eat only things that I really know where they came from. I eliminated all these oils and started eating butter and using cream and all that stuff. And one day I was supposed to have my first meal like at noon. Well, went out and started running errands. And I ran around and did a bunch of errands. And one of those days where you go someplace and you think you know where you're going, and then you find out, no, I got to go to this place.
Yeah.
It's obvious all pre-COVID. And then I got to go to this place. So I was running all around, and then I realized when I got home that I hadn't eaten in 24 hours. And I drank water, but I wasn't hungry. I
Yeah.
certainly wasn't hungry the way I used to get ravenously. So, yeah, it's a matter of learning. You don't have to feel hungry. Sometimes I have to remind myself, go eat something because my body's so trained to not get that feeling
Oh,
that I have to, but I do need to eat certain things, and not because I take meds. I take no big pharma. I drink hibiscus tea to control my blood pressure, which throws my cardiologist all to death. It did when I brought him the article from the Lancet that said it was every bit as effective as the meds he wanted to give me that made me gain weight. And I said, I'm not taking those. Uh, and I take an aspirin a day, and they said I needed to do that to thin my blood so that I wouldn't throat clots and things. And then they found out that I have a weird genetic factor, and I don't make plaque in my body. So I really don't necessarily need the aspirin. I take
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
It's my
It's interesting before we get on to the other ones that the medical community is evolving to accept keto,
mm-hmm.
because there's certain levels you can be extreme in anything that,
Mm-hmm.
and to me, that's not the right way to be. It is
No.
extreme. It's got to be more balanced. Um, but they're accepting keto more, and they're accepting intermittent fasting more,
Mm-hmm.
as the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in a shift. We're shifting up a
It's
lot
changing.
of things.
And when these documentaries were made, and those weren't, keto was out there, but nothing else was really much out there.
Right.
The next thing it said is, if, I think in the list I have, is plant-centered diets are better.
Yeah.
And locally sourced diets are better.
Yeah.
So if you can't go out and slaughter that hog yourself, you may not need that bacon. You know?
Well, we're talking plant based, aren't we?
Yeah, I'm saying though, yeah, but I'm saying people, I couldn't give up my bacon, I couldn't give up my whatever. And I don't. I mean, I eat them, but I just don't sit
Well,
down
and
and
the other
eat
thing
ham.
too, yeah, the other thing too, for me, whether this is right or wrong, because I grew up in the Midwest, and it was all, I mean, very few vegetables. I mean, we did eat vegetables, but there was just mainly meats, and we're cutting back on that.
Mhm.
But I find, I think if you eat the not farm, uh, the farm beefs and pork, where they're grazing more and they have a better
Right.
life.
Mhm.
Locally sourced smaller farms where that they're having a better life, that is better for you. But I think we're generally, if I could project out to the future, that we're going to be losing the animal
Right.
protein to a to almost 99% or
Mhm.
90% of our diet. It's all gonna be plant based,
Mhm.
very little animal and fish protein.
Mhm.
But it takes a while to for us to adapt and change on
Well,
that.
it's hard because you're used to cooking certain things. And, from somebody who's been cooking her own food for 50 years, it's, I have to go find other recipes. And quite honestly, I find some plant-based things you have to mix so many things together to get what you want,
Right.
that or something that's equivalent of what you were raised to believe is what you're supposed to eat.
Right.
Um, but anyway, we're working that way. However you can adjust it, that will work.
Yeah, and while we're on that, it was interesting that I got an email today on plant-based cooking, a series for your soul. And I'm going to put the link down below
Well,
in
cool.
the thing. And I got this from Sandra Ingerman, and she goes, I normally don't send out other people's recipes,
Mhm.
or other channels or series or whatever. But I'll put this out there. It looks like it's a vegan type
Mhm.
um, thing, which, okay, it, that's that's fine, if
Mhm.
that's where you want to go with it. That's, I think, where we're going to be in the future. So you
Mhm.
may want to take a look at that and see if any of those recipes sound good, so we can slowly start trying some of this and getting away from animal products.
The other part in that is a lot of the natural activity that kept these people going was gardening. All
Yeah.
of them had gardens. They all raised
Oh,
things.
yeah.
But then we got the next one in this, which is wine consumption. That's
Yeah.
on. You can have wine and you can have, that's really a judgment call you have to make. And you have to look at your body. Now, I was listening to a show yesterday that said if you drink a glass of wine, you've just stopped your body from working with ketones, which is how your body eats its own fat, for 2 days. So it's your choice.
Oh,
You can
oh,
expose it to, yeah, because your liver has to clear the byproducts of the wine that it's responsible for. And when it switches to do that, it loses its ability to make ketones.
right. Well, there's certain things that for when you're talking about the wine, drink red wine is supposed to be good for the heart, but if it's also going to take you off of keto, then you've got
Mm-hmm.
to balance that out. And again, you have to know what is affecting what you're putting in your body, how that's
Mm-hmm.
going to counteract something or help something in
Right.
another area.
Yeah. So, just think about it wisely and, you know, that
Yeah.
sort of thing. And then, then now we're out of food. We're into social networks, creating good
Mm.
social networks for yourself.
Yeah, there's three things that go along with that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I have.
What three things go into social networking for you?
I have uh, engagement in religion or spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, the Loma Linda area that is a blue zone is a big, what did they say it was?
Adventists. Adventists.
Adventist religion. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, but for you two, it feels like it's more of a spiritual community
It
that we
is.
get together. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, um,
They have a lot of community meals and a lot of things they share that
yeah, yeah.
way.
And then there's the family life, and then the last one is social life.
Mm-hmm.
So, how does that work, family life, if people are living by themselves?
They create families.
Hmm.
They make the social contract that, family are we traditionally think of them, they're the people who were born into that circle.
Right.
Apparently, according to my astrologer friends, they're the ones we picked out on our chart. And I think that's the hardest thing for people who have really, with a big D and dysfunction in their family. Why would I have picked that? Well, anyway,
Yeah.
that's a whole other subject. But there is the family you make for yourself.
Yes.
And my parents left Canada right after World War II, and they could not go home to Canada for 7 years because they decided to become US citizens, which Canada wouldn't recognize. So they had to become complete US citizens because if they crossed the border, they would not let them leave again because they had their college educations and all that. So it's a long
Mm.
story. So, needless to say, I didn't see any of my grandmothers till I was like in grade school.
Right.
I knew there was family up there somewhere, but the people that we really had as family were people that my parents met. And they also, you got to remember, after World War II, there was a whole lot of moving around, a whole lot of people leaving countries and never going back. It wasn't like you could travel now. So a lot of people were kind of like my parents. They were orphans of the time. So those orphans all got together and made their own family. And that's who we had full big tables of people at
Yeah.
every holiday. And, you know, uh, and I never missed that sense of, I understand what that sense is, but it's not because, no, it's not true. I have an old Uncle Charlie and he was a wizard, but he's come
A
across,
real wizard?
yeah. He could go out in the garden and take leaves off plants and make different sorts of whistles. He he could tell the funniest jokes, and any place you went with Uncle Charlie was enchanted. And I
Wow.
I mean, I'm talking about I was around him when I was 13 and 14 years old, and a complete Beatlemaniac and all that stuff. And I still believe that Uncle Charlie was one of the most magical people I ever met.
Awesome.
So, but and he was a married relation to a blood relation, but and he had taken my dad in for a period of time when my dad was a little kid and was about to be completely orphaned. Anyway, so you can have some magical relatives. I'm not saying this all relatives, but we had other family members that came in, like Bill Cuffle, who used to come in. He had the first Thunderbird convertible I ever saw. And he said, "You're the middle child." Apparently, he was the middle child in his family. He said, "You're the middle child. So when I come in town, I'm going to take you out. We're going to go get you an ice cream cone, and the other four get left behind. And my siblings resented the fact I rode around in that Thunderbird convertible. And my parents understood it because they'd have do things. Well, we'll do it with the two oldest kids. No, we'll take the two youngest kids. Finally, at one time, they realized I hadn't been to the zoo. I hadn't been to any of these things because
Oh
they
my
were
God.
taking the other ones. I mean, it happens. It's a real phenomenon of the 1950s. Let me tell you.
There
So
we go.
after that, I got dragged to every boat show I didn't want to go to. But um, you know, no, what my dad did when he realized how I'd been left out of the family circle, he had to go in once a month to Chicago for some sort of business reason. For he was a doctor, but he had business stuff he had to do in Chicago. So he used to drop me off at the planetarium, and I
Yeah.
got to see they had a 2-year program where they did a different show every month. I saw all 24 of them. So I mean, they weren't mean, horrible people that locked me in a closet or anything like that. Actually, I think my
They
dad
lock you in a planetarium.
yeah, well, my dad told me when I was grown and I was starting to read cards, and they knew all that. And they were good church going Episcopalians. He said, well, it figures we never knew what you were going to do next.
Yeah.
We just stood back and where'd she come from?
Yeah. And yeah,
So,
you know, getting back to that family life
right.
thing.
But I went and found other people who looked at me the same way. And I
Yeah.
said, oh, I must belong to you because I completely befuddle you.
Right. Right. And I think with our soul contracts, because I
Right.
look, I go, wow, why did I pick them to be in
Mm-hmm.
my life? And it's all about the lessons that we need to go through to
Mm-hmm.
grow so that we can reverse our aging. I'm trying to bring it back to
Yes, to this.
reversing the aging. Um, but it's all about us growing and letting go of some of this stuff that is triggering us.
Mm-hmm.
And and that is the reduction of stress so
Mm-hmm.
that so we just have to figure out how to let that go and not let it bother us so that we can be in the community that does make us happy.
Yep.
And I think that that's what this YouTube community offers for so many of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you see it, and you see it in your chat. You have the same people coming to different kinds. Like, I have no idea what people are going to think of this discussion, although I do weird stuff like this all the time. Danny does much more sane things like throw cards and talk about topics like that. But I think I want to see us build communities out of not necessarily that we love each other, but of acceptance. And oh, I'm curious about that stuff too.
Yeah.
You know,
And yeah, I mean, that's a good point with building a community where we all love each other. Well, we have different likes and dislikes.
mm-hmm,
And so it's not, it's not about, oh, I just love you so much. It's about the respect and the acceptance of
mm-hmm,
something that you may not even agree with, but just
mm-hmm,
accept it. That's good for you, and it's not good for
mm-hmm,
me. And they accept that it's not good for me, but it's good for them.
mm-hmm.
So and I think that's where, you know, even speaking politically, that's where we need to get to, even though we are so divided and we're so filled with, we're not listening to anybody's real um, issues. We're just lashing out.
What we're doing is a lot of us, and I'm as guilty of this as the next person. I'm listening so I can figure out what my retort's going to be to you, instead of listening and trying to understand where that concept comes from.
Right, right,
And and I think when you deal with these kinds of social networks to help bolster one another, you know, you just kind of gotta quit that either for real eye rolling or just the eye rolling you do psych in your psych. You
right.
know, somebody comes up to me and they say, you know, oh, I had this experience and this happened to me, and and I've been through some crazy crap in my life, and I almost said the other word. Um, but and I'll look, that's just the strangest things. And then I think about, well, when you tell people you have visions where you ride dragons, oh, well, maybe I should be a little more charitable.
Yeah. Right. Right. So anyway, what do we need to end with? Because I think we're close to an
Okay, I think we need, there's two things I want to know is, are finding different concepts about how we can structure our lives important to people? Or are they going to say, I'm structuring my life just fine, leave me alone? So why are you wasting your time talking about this? That would be one thing. And then the other thing is, what was the major message you got out of kind of hearing about this? Is it you're going to go look up blue zones and find your own take on it?
Mhm.
Is it that you've already started to build your life like that, and maybe you didn't even focus that you'd been doing it?
Right.
You
That's
know,
good. Yeah.
because I know reading some of this, I could remember friends that I've had and that have gone away, and one who hasn't gone away completely, but um, because of where they were and how our friendship was working, I had to kind of build a barrier, and this is the time when we're letting go. Well, what are you letting go of? Who and what that person is, and because it's not convenient for you? Or
Yeah.
are you letting them go because it's actually destructive to you? And I think a lot of these concepts are pulling people together that unify us as opposed to make us be oil and water with each other.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I think
So,
I'm going to leave it. I think I'm going to leave it there. Because that was a good.
and if people want to come comment to me, come over to Nancy Jean's garden, and I'm going to run this show again. Danny and I are taping this.
Yes.
We're going to run it. And let me know what you think, because my channel is so open to go in so many different ways that, one of the things I'm doing is I'm going to be doing an intense 6 weeks on past lives. I'm going to be doing at least one show a week on past
Great.
lives, which is an interesting way to look at this life and some of these concepts. Did I ever have that in another life?
Yeah. That's awesome.
But if you come over, you subscribe, join, do whatever you want to do, you get notifications of what's going on. And so if you said, God, how did Danny ever end up doing this? You come over to my channel and find it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Nancy. This has
Well,
been
thank you,
awesome.
Danny, for inviting me over after we
Yeah.
talked about these things.
Yeah. I mean, you always take me down a rabbit hole.
That's
The
true.
other thing that I was going to ask about that another time, because I'm going to have to get going, is are these blue zones on
Mhm.
major ley lines, dragon lines? And I
I
bet they
I'm
are.
gonna I'm gonna be talking to Johan. He's had his baby, and I finally mailed him his blanket. And he's my guy in South Africa that fixes ley lines all over the world. But I'll be able to go and see if
And
they're in power, if they're in
yeah,
power points.
I bet they are.
I bet you they are.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you soon. Peace and love.
Bye.